Oh, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm sorry, I won't put you guys through that. The SpongeBob Movie, Sponge on the Run, is brought to us by director Tim Hill. One day, when he comes home from work, SpongeBob notices that his best friend in the whole world, no, apparently not Patrick, Gary, his pet snail, has been snail-napped. We come to find that he was apparently taken by King Poseidon, who lives in the lost city of Atlantic City. So SpongeBob sets out with his apparently second best friend, Patrick, to find the lost city of Atlantic City and rescue his best friend, Gary. Sponge on the Run is the third SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The first being the absolutely fantastic The SpongeBob SquarePants Movie, and the second being the pretty good Sponge Out of Water. So is the third time a charm, or is the third time just too much? Unfortunately, it's a bit of the latter this time. Our basic story is fine. I mean, it fits in line with the other two SpongeBob SquarePants movies, whereas our heroes have to go on a quest to find a thing and bring it back, meeting a collection of odd characters and getting into weird situations all along the way. In this respect, the movie fits in line with the other two, but these odd characters and weird situations they get into this time around aren't quite as good as the previous movie, and definitely aren't as good as the original SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Now that's not to say that there's not fun to be had here, because there is, like Keanu Reeves showing up as a sage within a sage was a pretty good gag. We also have a scene with Snoop Dogg and Danny Trejo, and this scene is a pretty good time as well. But that's about where the good times start to kind of peter out a bit in the movie. Right after this part, around about the halfway mark of the movie, things really just start to plateau as far as the good time. I mean, it's okay, but it's not really that SpongeBob excitement that we've come to expect. I think the biggest problem I had with the movie is that it didn't seem like a SpongeBob SquarePants movie. It seemed like a movie that was trying to be a SpongeBob SquarePants movie. It wasn't doing its own thing. It was emulating something else. And it really shows here. That's not to say that there's not some really weird and out there stuff that happens in this movie, but it just doesn't all seem as original and entertaining as it did in the previous two films. Once again, especially in the first SpongeBob SquarePants movie. I mean, we got cameos and stuff here, but none of them are on the level of the David Hasselhoff cameo from the first film. That cameo was just out there enough to be like, what is going on here? But it just kind of fit, and they really made it work. Sure, we get Snoop Dogg, Danny Trejo, and Keanu Reeves, and the Keanu Reeves part is the most entertaining of them all, and the one that's probably the most out there. But even it, after its initial showing, was just kind of like, okay, I mean, yeah, that's cool, he's there, and he's got some funny things to say here and there, but it doesn't really have that same flair as the other movies did. Also, about that cameo, that's not a cameo. He's like in this movie. I really expected him to show up for like one or two scenes and that'd be it. No, he's throughout the vast majority of the movie. He shows up quite a few times as this character. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's in it too much. It just kind of took away from that special feeling of it all. I don't know, but I do know that later on in the movie when he showed up, it just was kind of like, all right, cool, Keanu Reeves is here and he's a fudge bush. The movie does definitely have excitement for itself, but that excitement doesn't really translate to you, the viewer, as much. Now, yes, I'm a grown-ass man talking about SpongeBob SquarePants and being excited about it, but the thing is, that's the cool thing about SpongeBob SquarePants. Kids love SpongeBob, but adults can enjoy SpongeBob as well. It's not typically something adults, for the most part at least, are gonna sit there and watch on their own, but as they watch it with children, they're not just wanting to gouge their eyes out for the most part. SpongeBob's pretty irreverent and self-aware, and the makers have always put little things in there, nothing bad or nasty, but they have put things in there that adults could appreciate that kids don't quite get. Much like the aforementioned David Hasselhoff bit from the original movie. Now, unfortunately, early on while this movie was being made, creator Steven Hillenburg, who was always very involved in everything SpongeBob, including the movies, passed away. Now, while I do know that one person doesn't make a movie, I do wonder if his passing is one of the things that makes this one seem a bit different than the others. Was he that magic spark that made SpongeBob SpongeBob? I don't know, but there probably is a case to be made for that here. Something else that changed this way around was the animation style. SpongeBob started life as traditional animation, and that translated over to the first movie and even part of the second movie. They made a design choice in the second movie that when SpongeBob and friends came to the real world, aka our world, they used CGI characters instead of the traditional animation animation characters we had grown used to. Now this was fine because the vast majority of the movie was still that traditional animation, and when they brought them to these CG characters, it was still just a variation of those animated characters we all knew and loved. And it also wasn't really the whole movie. From what I remember, it was just more or less the end of the movie, or at least the last quarter. However, here it's all CG, but they did employ a technique that makes this CG kind of make it look like it's stop motion to a degree. It is a neat technique, and we have seen it in other things before, but I don't really get why they did that here. Why not just go the traditional animation route that SpongeBob has always been? It's not the end of the world or anything, but I didn't really see a point in it because the design of the characters and the world that they're in is still the same, but the way that they're animated, the way that they're drawn is totally different from what we're used to. Now, I have no problem with change when it comes to things, but I do think that if you're going to change something, there needs to be a reason. And I really don't see the reason here as to why they did it. Once again, it's not a deal breaker, but it is something I definitely noticed throughout and didn't really understand why they even did it. It didn't really add anything whatsoever. Now, while the story and tone may have come up a bit short here, something that's totally in line with what it's always been would be the voice performances. As far as I could tell, everybody that's always done the voices of these characters is back in full force this time around. Tom Kenny, Mr. Lawrence, and Clancy Brown are all in top form as usual. When it comes to the performances as a whole, I have no complaint. They're all up to the quality that we've come to expect from a SpongeBob production. Now, if you didn't like SpongeBob performances before, then you're not gonna like them now. But if you were a fan of the SpongeBob franchise, then fear not, because the voice performances are intact. As mentioned before, we do get some live action cameos of Keanu Reeves, Snoop Dogg, and Danny Trejo. And all three of these guys seem like they're having a really good time with this bit. Danny Trejo in particular seems like he's just having a blast, but Danny Trejo in general seems like he's having a blast in everything he's in. I do think that they used the Keanu Reeves character just a bit too much, and it made the specialness of it all wear off a bit by the time the end credits roll. But as a whole, all the live action and voice performances in the film are what we've come to expect from SpongeBob, and in my opinion, were really good. Guys, at the end of the day, Sponge on the Run on its own was okay, but when compared to the previous SpongeBob movies, was a bit of a disappointment. I'm man enough to admit that I do enjoy me some SpongeBob SquarePants, and whenever a new SpongeBob SquarePants movie comes out, I am a bit excited to sit down and watch it with my kids. Unfortunately, with this one, that excitement wore off around the halfway point, but it wasn't just me, it was my kids as well. They weren't quite as enthralled with this one as they typically would be with a SpongeBob SquarePants production. I mean, they liked it and they watched it, but you could tell that they just weren't really into it as much as usual. I mean, it seems like all the ingredients for SpongeBob are here, but it's like we're missing a little something. It's kind of like a Krabby Patty that Plankton made without the special Krabby Patty formula. I mean, it's okay and people will eat it and they'll be full from it, but it's missing that special formula, that special something that makes it a Krabby Patty. And while it's not awful or anything like that, since it is missing that special Krabby Patty formula, at best, check out the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run on streaming.
Across the street.
Ironically enough, this movie was supposed to come out in May in theaters, but because of some worldwide stuff that's been going on, it got delayed until finally landing on Netflix here recently. So I guess the rating kind of works out here. If you got some kids in the house and they like SpongeBob, then check this one out one night and it'll keep them entertained enough. And while you as an adult will probably enjoy the first half of the movie, that second half you'll probably spend more time on your phone. So there it is, guys, my review of the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Bikini Bottom.
I'm made out of sage and I am a sage, so it works out pretty well. I'm Patrick. My name means toaster in Celtic. Pretty sure it doesn't.
Now, while the movie as a whole isn't in line with the tone and story of the SpongeBob that we've come to know and love, there is one part that is absolutely there, and that's the part where we get introduced to Keanu Reeves, Snoop Dogg, and Danny Trejo. This scene is just insane, but it's like insane in that perfect kind of SpongeBob insane way. There's like cowboy zombies, a talking bush, a cowboy devil kind of vampire thing, and even a musical number with a song by Snoop Dogg. It's just crazy, but it's that just right kind of SpongeBob crazy. If only they could have kept up with that kind of tone throughout the entirety of the movie, this could have been a great SpongeBob time. But they didn't, and here we are. Oh yeah, and they show SpongeBob when he was a kid in a few parts, and they screwed his laugh up there. I don't know what it is, but it's just not quite right. I mean, come on, man, you can't have a SpongeBob movie and screw up his laugh. It's not hard to do. I mean, you guys do this for a living. It's not hard to get SpongeBob's laugh right. You can't screw that up. Come on, man, it's easy. See? One of my many talents, I guess.